"It's an honor to be with you," Trump tells Putin as they meet for 2 hours, and officials hail a deal for a ceasefire in part of Syria as meeting ends. President Donald Trump's face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin stretched on for more than 2 hours, and was quickly followed by news the US and Russia had reached an agreement on a ceasefire in Syria. The closely watched meeting had only been scheduled to run for 30 minutes. Instead, it ran for 2 hours and 16 minutes. The ceasefire is to take effect Sunday at noon in Damascus, the Associated Press reported, without adding further details. Israel and Jordan were reported to be part of the agreement. The sign of possible progress in Syria, where Russia is the primary backer of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, came more than 2 hours after Trump said it was an honor to meet Putin. The deal, confirmed by 3 U.S. officials, is distinct from a plan for de-escalation zones that were part of a Russia-brokered deal that did not include the U.S. Putin told the president he was delighted to meet for the first time. And with that, the dance was on. The two leaders of nations that once squared off in Cold War iciness sat down in a neutral setting Friday, representing their nations at the G20 in Hamburg, Germany. The men's first high-stakes handshake had happened hours earlier in a backstage moment captured by a German government photographer. With the drama all but gone, Trump and Putin sat before cameras in advance of a meeting that was expected to last more than a half hour. Accompanying each man was the smallest of entourages, for Trump, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, and a translator, and for Putin, his Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and a translator. On the agenda, according to White House officials, was everything from the Ukraine to NATO arms buildups. But administration insiders wouldn't say if the president planned to upbraid his Moscow counterpart for meddling in the election that brought him to power. And Trump ignored reporters' questions about whether he would raise the uncomfortable but geopolitically crucial topic. Democrats have criticized Trump for taking office under a cloud of controversy, saying the Kremlin installed him in the White House through a series of computer hacking exploits aimed at weakening Hillary Clinton and raising doubts about U.S. election integrity. Republicans have largely insisted Trump won the Oval Office because Clinton was a weak candidate who ignored the lessons of U.S. electoral history. As history yields to future, Trump and Putin will inevitably have to get a practical feel for each other, at a time when most of the world imagines them as yin and yang, opposite, but deeply familiar. One administration official said Friday that Trump would be happy to listen a bit, before making demands, since the two men really don't know each other. A second official said the president would go into the meeting with a mental checklist of things to discuss, but that the short window of time meant they would likely have only enough space to establish a working relationship. Trump said repeatedly during his campaign that it would be a good thing for the United States if Washington and Moscow had a relationship based on more than mutual distrust. On Friday he told journalists, "We've had some very, very good talks." Through a translator, Putin said phone calls to the White House are never enough, definitely. "I'm delighted to be able to meet you personally, and I hope that as you have said our meetings will yield positive results." The first meeting was less choreographed and far less anticipated. The German government captured the ordinarily hidden first handshakes and backslaps by mounting a video camera on top of an official photographer's camera. Trump was seen shaking Putin's hand, while using his left hand to pat the underside of Putin's arm. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, facing them from the other side of a cocktail table, leaned obliviously while the two men appeared to chuckle at a private joke. The surprising gesture was more familiar than anything else shown on the 40-second video clip, which was first published on Facebook. When Putin greeted UK Prime Minister Theresa May, for instance, the handshake is formal, curt, and respectful, with the leaders bowing to each other slightly. But when Trump came up to the same table to see Putin, the "how do you do" is more congenial, the stuff of fishing buddies or bowling teammates. In a later clip, Trump was shown extending his left arm to pat Putin's back while he smiles broadly. Until Thursday, the two men had reportedly never met. Trump is trying to establish a rapport with Putin, one White House aide said Friday, in the hope that the two men can reach a détente and avoid a new Cold War. But the US president's critics warn that Putin, a former KGB spymaster, is a master of manipulation who can meet every Trump volley with an overhand smash. The footage was shot during the leaders' retreat, an informal gathering before the more consequential meetings that form the basis of G20 policy discussions. Trump and his colleagues will remain in Hamburg until Saturday. He earlier tweeted that he had much to discuss with the Russian leader. "I look forward to all meetings today with world leaders, including my meeting with Vladimir Putin. Much to discuss," Trump wrote, adding the hashtag USA and an American flag emoji. Friday's much anticipated encounter in Hamburg, Germany, comes at a pivotal time in US-Russian relations. Trump will be closely watched to see if he confronts Putin over Russia's meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Ahead of the G20 summit's start, Trump vowed to fight for US interests, despite the fake news media he claims covers him inaccurately. "I will represent our country well and fight for its interests. Fake news media will never cover me accurately, but who cares? We will #mega, he tweeted ahead of the G20 summit, where he will meet with world leaders. The president arrived Friday morning after most of his international counterparts, shaking hands with German Chancellor Angela Merkel with a friendly "How are you?" greeting. Merkel, as the host leader, greeted every head of state personally on a red carpet as camera shutters clicked. She got kisses on the cheek from European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, European Council President Donald Tusk, Italian Prime Minister Paolo Gentiloni, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and French President Emmanuel Macron. After 15 leaders had arrived, an announcer said the welcome proceedings were over. Merkel exited but came back several minutes later to greet Trump, South Korean President Moon Jae-in and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trump clasped Merkel on the shoulder as they both disappeared inside the G20 meeting room. During a brief photo call at the top of the leaders' retreat, Trump was seated between Merkel and UK Prime Minister Theresa May. While May chatted with the US president, Merkel faced away from them and chatted with Macron. The room, a cavernous sea of bright yellow carpet, put at least 50 feet of distance between Trump and Putin, who was seated a quarter of the way around the giant circle. But the two men did meet and shake hands and greeted each other warmly. They shook each other's hand and said that they would soon hold a separate meeting, would soon see each other, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told a conference call with reporters. When asked if Putin was looking forward to the talks and whether he had lots of questions for Trump, Peskov said he did. U.S. lawmakers and federal investigators are continuing to look into Russia's election interference, along with possible collusion between Trump campaign associates and Russian government officials. Russia has been accused by 4 U.S. intelligence agencies of interfering in the national election that hoisted Trump to power last year. That puts Trump under intense scrutiny over how he handles the sit-down with Putin, a former Russian intelligence agent known to come well prepared to meetings like this. Trump said at a news conference in Poland on Thursday that Russia could have interfered in the 2016 presidential campaign, but he's not convinced that it was the sole meddler. "I think it was Russia, and it could have been other people in other countries," Trump said. "Nobody really knows." He added that the U.S. intelligence community has made high-profile mistakes in the past, so nobody really knows for sure. Trump sought to redirect any scrutiny toward his predecessor, Barack Obama, accusing him of allowing Moscow to meddle on his watch. Though the Obama administration warned Russia publicly and privately before Election Day to stop interfering, questions have since been raised about whether the office holder acted aggressively enough to stop the threat. "They say he choked." "Well, I don't think he choked," Trump said. "I think he thought Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, and he said, 'Let's not do anything about it.'" Trump said the CIA had informed Obama about the hacking months before the election but added that mistakes have been made. In Putin, Trump sees a potential ally in the war on radicalism in the Middle East. The Republican president and his administration have held off on slapping Moscow with new sanctions as they assess Putin's willingness to work with the US to defeat ISIS and remove Bashar al-Assad from power in Syria. Experts on Putin have said it is Trump who should be worried that the Russian president will try to earn concessions. Putin, like other world leaders who have Trump's number, is most likely to get what he wants by flattering him. I would be surprised if Vladimir Putin offers any concessions in exchange for restoring what Russia sees as its inalienable rights, Dmitry Trinin, director of the Carnegie Moscow Center, told the Associated Press. If no agreement is reached, Russia will take retaliatory measures, which could trigger new U.S. moves, he added. Trump's deal-making skills and his electoral victory are especially ripe for the complimenting, foreign leaders have found, although Putin is less likely to bring up the latter than other people in positions of power who have sat across from the billionaire. A close ally of Syria and Iran, Trump called on Russia from Poland to cease its destabilizing activities in Ukraine and elsewhere and its support for hostile regimes in his most forceful remarks on the subject yet during a Thursday speech. Russia must choose to join the US and its allies in their fight against common enemies and in defense of civilization itself, Trump said. Putin's government is presently aligned with powers that seek to test our will, undermine our confidence, and challenge our interests, Trump stated. To meet new forms of aggression, including propaganda, financial crimes, and cyber warfare, we must adapt our alliance to compete effectively in new ways and on all new battlefields, he declared. Russia has made no indications that it would be willing to sell out Assad in order to take out ISIS. To the contrary, it has continued to work with the ruling class in the face of vicious assaults on women and children. Trump's attitude coming into office had been to let the civil war in Syria resolve itself. A chemical weapons attack in April that killed 89 changed his mind. These heinous actions by the Assad regime cannot be tolerated. The United States stands with our allies across the globe to condemn this horrific attack and all other horrific attacks, for that matter, he said during a news conference the following day. As Trump dropped bombs on the facility in Syria where the attack was launched from several days later, he urged all civilized nations to join the U.S. in seeking to end the slaughter and bloodshed in Syria, and also to end terrorism of all kinds and all types. Before Putin, Trump tried to manage another rocky international relationship as he with Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto. Peña Nieto had been scheduled to visit the White House shortly after Trump took office, but he scrapped the trip at the last minute due to disagreement with Trump over the U.S. president's insistence that Mexico pay for the wall he has vowed to build along the US-Mexico border to deter illegal immigration. Peña Nieto insists Mexico will not pay. Trump hailed Peña Nieto as a friend in their face-to-face meeting on Friday, but said he absolutely wants Mexico to pay for the wall. Peña Nieto insists Mexico will not pay for the wall. Trump said, "It's great to be with my friend the President of Mexico." Peña Nieto said he hopes to continue a flowing dialogue. He reassured Peña Nieto in April that he would not pull out of the North American Free Trade Agreement, which involves the United States, Mexico, and Canada. But Trump said he could still withdraw if he concludes that a renegotiated pact would not produce a fair deal for all sides. The Putin meeting is the highlight of a hectic, four-day European visit for Trump, who addressed thousands of Poles in an outdoor speech in Warsaw, Poland, on Thursday. He met in Germany with Chancellor Angela Merkel, the summit host, and had dinner with two Asian allies, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and South Korean President Moon Jae-in, to discuss North Korea's aggression. The Group of 20 gathering of the world's leading rich and developing nations is the first since Trump announced that the United States would withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement, deeply disappointing Merkel and other U.S. allies who had hoped to maintain momentum in battling climate change. Even as